Good morning, everyone. We want to make sure that you have your speakers off as you join us this morning for our second educational session, Louisiana's Executive and State Policy and Budget Priorities for FY 20.
Testing. Can you hear me?
Oh, we're
Great.
we're on. Okay. I'm Dr. Toya
Great.
Barnes-Steamer, and I am the chair of the United Way of Southeast Louisiana's Public Policy Committee. In my private life, I'm the owner of Team of Strategy Group, and I will be hosting today's program. As we get started, I'd like to clarify a few housekeeping rules. So, one, this session will be recorded and shared with all registrants. There will be time for questions and discussions, and this time we'll be doing it within the webinar due to the fact that some of our wonderful panelists will need to leave us prior to the end of our session. So please share your questions using the chat, and we will identify you as we go through our program this morning. I would like to thank all participants for joining us today. Each year, United Way of Southeast Louisiana creates an agenda outlining our priority public policy issues in community resiliency, financial security, healthy community, and youth opportunity in preparation for the start of each state legislative session. United Way of Southeast Louisiana hosts educational sessions to advance our fight to eradicate poverty in Southeast Louisiana and to ensure we achieve our bold goal of getting 100,000 ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, employed individuals on the pathway to prosperity by 2035. The bold goal is grounded in our Blueprint for Prosperity, which is a data informed, community driven framework that defines what it actually takes for households to thrive. Poverty is not one problem, it is a set of interconnected conditions. Housing affects health, health affects work, work affects financial stability. The blueprint helps us focus on stabilizing families today while building pathways toward long term security and stronger communities. For policymakers, this framework reinforces an important truth: families do not live in silos, and policy should not live there either. It is now my great honor to welcome today's esteemed panelists, Secretary Susie Showen with Louisiana Works, Dr. Kim Hunter Reed with Louisiana Board of Regents, Mr. Adam Patrick with Louisiana Department of Insurance, Dr. Jenna Chasson with Louisiana Department of Education, and Mr. Christopher Baum with Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services. It is now my pleasure to introduce Susie Showen. Susie serves as the Secretary of Louisiana Works. She was appointed by Governor Jeff Landry in January of 2024. Prior to joining the Louisiana Works, she spent 2 years as the Vice President for Education at the Louisiana Community and Technical College System. And before that, she was at LED Fast Start, the Workforce Development Division of Louisiana Economic Development, for over 10 years. Through all these roles, Susie has focused on building coalitions of industry partners, economic developers, and educators to align education and workforce development efforts with the needs of employers and the economy, increasing the prosperity of our people and our communities. She takes a highly innovative and employer responsive approach, restructuring systems to lift individuals out of poverty while driving economic growth and measuring success using performance based models that reward results, not promises. Please join me in welcoming Secretary Showen. Hi, Susie.
Hello, Toya. It's good to see you this morning. So,
You can go
Yeah,
ahead
go
and
ahead.
get started with your comments. Yes.
Yeah, very good. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about what's going on in the upcoming session. I hear everybody talking about this session as the workforce session, and it certainly looks like it's shaping up that way. We are extremely excited by the enthusiasm out there on the part of our representatives and senators to really see where we can go to take Louisiana to the next step or to the next level. I am going to back up just a little bit and talk about some of the things that we're seeing in our economy and seeing in kind of the national landscape, and then talk about what it is that we're doing to respond to those dynamics. So first of all, we are coming up really rapidly on $100 billion of investment in Louisiana since Governor Jeff Landry came in just a little bit more than 2 years ago. This is absolutely unprecedented. It's extraordinary. And we are so far ahead of the rest of the country when it comes to economic growth and the way jobs are growing. And these are well-paying jobs. These are middle-class jobs. These are jobs that will allow people to be self-sufficient. We are also looking, with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, at new requirements to maintain eligibility for the Medicaid program. And Secretary Bruce Greenstein can talk about this far more intelligently than I can. But what I really want to emphasize for this group is that we're likely to have a little bit more than around 100,000 people who are going to need to either work, volunteer, or be in school for 80 hours a month for the 3 months prior to the evaluation point in order to maintain Medicaid eligibility. This starts January 1st, 2027. And that means that for those folks whose eligibility is being reevaluated, then there's going to be a look back in time, right? So we're going to need to be prepared as the workforce agency to help people meet these requirements so that we know that they're going to maintain their eligibility for Medicaid. And then I really want to emphasize that the ultimate goal here is not maintaining Medicaid eligibility. It's getting folks into high quality employment where they are able to get their insurance in the private sector and they don't need Medicaid. So this is all part of the benefits to self-sufficiency, moving people from dependence to independence that we talked about so much in last year's session when we passed the One Door to Work Act, led by Stephanie Baralt and Kim Carver, in two bills that moved SNAP to the Department of Health, moved workforce programs, and ultimately TANF to our agency, and allows DCFS, and I know Christopher will talk about this later, to focus on being the standalone agency, to focus on child welfare. It's so important for our state to be able to focus on that at the cabinet level. So we've got this unprecedented growth. We've got jobs growing. We have got to be able to put people into those jobs in a way that responds to what the employer needs in order to thrive and grow here in Louisiana, and make sure that we're able to respond to the needs of the community so that these mega projects don't just soak up all the existing workers in a community and leave the existing businesses to do without. So we have to meet that need, and we have to meet the opportunity that the Medicaid requirements offer to our people, and really make sure that we're working with them to get them to self-sufficiency. Our current federally funded workforce system is not prepared to meet that need. But I want to be really careful in the way that I talk about this, because I want to make it clear that that fact is the fault of the system and not the fault of the people working within it. Nobody chooses to work in the federally funded workforce system. And these are our local workforce areas with the workforce development boards that people might be familiar with, um, and with the American Job Centers in their communities. Nobody chooses to work in these systems because they're lazy and they want to get rich. These people choose to work in these systems because they want to lift people out of poverty. These are mission driven people and mission driven jobs. I tell them all the time, they are doing God's work. And I am so privileged and humbled by the opportunity to work with them. I do not want to sound like I am criticizing them when I say the system isn't ready to meet the challenge that we're looking for. It's the fault of the system. It's the way it's built. It's way too bureaucratic. It micromanages every step of the way. It focuses on process metrics rather than outcomes. It's very frustrating to try to work with this system to try to do the things that we need to do while knowing that it's just not structured appropriately to do that. And I do say often that if we were to build a workforce and social services system designed to trap people in poverty, it would look a whole lot like the system that we have. So how are we going to address that? And I'm very pleased to say that at the federal level, the U.S. Department of Labor is recognizing this problem. And they recently issued guidance encouraging states to apply for waivers to allow them to streamline and improve these systems. So Governor Jeff Landry, a few weeks ago at DC Mardi Gras, signed an executive order that requires our agency to apply for these waivers. We will be passing legislation, hopefully passing legislation. We will be introducing legislation carried by Representative John Weibel to illustrate the fact that moving towards this more streamlined and more citizen responsive workforce system is the will of the state, and really put that out there that that is a direction that we need to move in. And we are moving really much faster than any other state to be able to, with the one door model and with the streamlining of our workforce system, to be ready for change and for the new challenges in front of us. We are hearing from a lot of people around the country that we're probably a year ahead of any other state in terms of responding to the imperative right now. I also want to emphasize the importance of focusing on employer needs. So Representative Dennis Bamberg will be leading legislation for us to establish the Louisiana Talent Accelerator, which is a standalone employer-facing unit within our agency to make sure that we are able to help businesses with all of their workforce needs and bring in all of our wonderful partners, including a lot of people on this call today, to help deliver on that promise. Senator Adam Bass will also be leading legislation to help fund that initiative. No new financial requests, just retooling state and federal funds to meet this demand. And finally, we have workers' compensation reform being led by Senator Brock Myers, and he has just been extraordinary at crafting a really good set of proposals, and just want to thank him for taking the lead on that. So I'll wrap up there, but yeah, we've got a lot of good things going on. Oh, we can't hear you, Toya.
Yes, I've put myself on mute, but thank you so much for those comments. I do have one follow-up for you regarding the 100 billion investment and the point that you made around the system. And I totally agree with you. We have to adhere to the systems that have been put in place for us. But as I think about our Alice population, and I think about the points that you made regarding the new requirements for Medicaid. There are three things that kind of pop up for me that I don't know if you can answer the question or just make sure that these issues are incorporated in any legislation. And that would be, if we want people to go to school and we want people to work, when we talk about the Medicaid issue, the thing that comes up a lot as we're on the ground is around child care and family care. So that's one system area I think we really need to pay attention to. The other thing that I'm hearing is when we talk about the benefits cliff and we talk about the high quality employment and high paying jobs, it's the time frame between getting employed and then where the benefits go away before you get like your own insurance benefits through a job. So I just wanted to know if there's been any discussion there, if that's a part of what we're thinking about when we talk about systems and its impact on the individuals who really want to work, your teams who really want to put people to work, and employers who want people to work. Could you kind of respond to any of what I just said?
Absolutely. And those are such good questions. I'll start by saying that the U.S. Department of Labor is not the only federal agency that is recognizing the dysfunction of their systems. And they are not the only federal agency that is encouraging states to apply for waivers to build more flexibility into those systems. So we have the most incredible newly established relationship with the Louisiana Department of Health. And we have a long-standing relationship with the Department of Children and Family Services, where we're really all partnering together to see how we can eliminate the benefits cliff, which is what you were talking about at the end there. And we may never be able to truly eliminate a benefits cliff, but what we want to do is to ease that transition and make sure that people aren't just very abruptly ending up in a worse financial situation than where they were before they made the choice to go to work. We don't want to disincentivize people from going to work. We are also working with our employer partners to help ease that transition as well. They may make some choices like moving the point of eligibility for employer-based healthcare earlier in the employment process. But then to return to the first part of your question, which is about overcoming barriers to getting to education, to getting the skills, and then getting to employment, where we see a great deal of immediate opportunity is people who want to work and could be working, but they have relatively straightforward barriers in front of them that aren't so hard to solve for as long as we've got a system that's intended to solve for them. Childcare is absolutely such an enormous issue here. Access to reliable transportation is another, and access to accommodations for minor disabilities. So many people in Louisiana are confronting the kind of disabilities that make it more difficult to overcome some barriers, but that really they can be excellent and very productive workers as long as we're able to offer some accommodations. Part of the reason for the workforce system reform that we're talking about is to direct more of those dollars to supportive services and to training costs. So it's reducing the overhead so more of the dollar can go to solving problems like the ones that you just addressed. As we look at finishing the requirements for the One Door to Work Act, having the TANF program, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, come over to us is to be able to shape those dollars around supportive services that people need to go to work. And all of these things will give us an opportunity to draw in the community resources and help deploy those more effectively towards overcoming barriers for people. So we're on here with the United Way of Southeast Louisiana, and I want to recognize the resources that they bring to the table and make sure that we're able to incorporate those resources into the solutions that we're offering people.
Excellent, because I did see that Michael put in the chat, the role of nonprofits and within the new approach to the workforce development system.
Yes.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions for Secretary Shawan. So if there are no other questions, concerns, or comments, thank you so much, Susie. I know you have a lot on your plate today, but we do appreciate you jumping on and being with us. And of course, if any other questions come up, we know how to find you. So we will send those to you and we will communicate that information back as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
So next we have our Commissioner of Higher Education. Dr. Reed is Louisiana's Commissioner of Higher Education. She is currently the only female in the country to have served as a state higher education leader in multiple states. She is a proven advocate for students who has worked effectively at campus, state, and federal levels. She was recognized nationally as the 2020 Exceptional Leader by the State Higher Education Executive Officers Association, better known as SHIELD. She is a nationally recognized student advocate with extensive higher education and government experience. In addition to leading the Colorado Department of Higher Education, she served in President Obama's administration as Deputy Undersecretary at the U.S. Department of Education, where she also led the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities. Collectively, Reed has served in senior leadership roles with 4 governors across 2 states. Please join me in welcoming my dear friend, Dr. Kim Hunter Reed. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you, Toya. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today. And I'm really appreciative of having the opportunity to not only have this conversation, but to follow Susie Shawan, because we are 2 sides of the same coin, right? You cannot think about prosperity, our goal, and your phenomenal prosperity centers without ensuring that people have the training and skills that allow them to get the jobs that allow them and their families to thrive. And so I think this pathway to prosperity is really important and stands as a strong partnership that we're proud to have between our agency and certainly the goals and the life's work that you're doing at the United Way. So thank you so much for that. And thank you, Toya, for that introduction. We educate about 200,000 students in Louisiana in our public and private institutions. Obviously, we would like to educate so many more. And as you think about what Susie was saying about the move of public benefits from Children and Family Services to Louisiana Works, we know that people will not magically have the opportunity to go to work because we moved the services from one agency to another. Education and skills and training is what allows them to have the ability to do that, and the supportive work that has to circle around them, whether it's childcare, as she mentioned, transportation, healthcare, a number of things. So we are all in it together when it comes to this work. So I'm happy to share a little bit about our work to accelerate momentum in Louisiana. I also want to thank and note Michael Williamson is on. He and I were last week at the Federal Reserve office in New Orleans talking about labor force participation in Louisiana and what we need to do there and what the statistics look like in terms of moving people from poverty into a higher quartile of success and earning potential. So lots of partnership, lots of conversation. Of course, I have my handy dandy Alice report right here with me. We talk about it all the time. 50% of Louisiana's households are ALICE households, and how do we address them? And so really appreciate the partnership and the work. The next slide for us is really where we are in terms of our big goal. We set a goal in 2019 that 60% of our population would have a credential of value by the year 2030. You see the blue dots, which represent life happening in Louisiana, right? Pandemics, hurricanes, and up and down work, not just straight up North Star to our goal, but we educate in the environment we have, not the environment we wish we had. And so we are trending positive, 52.5% educational attainment. This is the first year that we are on track to exceed our 60% goal. And we're very excited because we know that represents opportunity for so many of our citizens across this state. And that is very important. So it's work that we're committed to doing. It's the work that our colleges and universities are doing each and every day. It's the work that you're helping to make possible for individuals who are coming to you, needing services, needing guidance and navigators, and allowing them to do that. And we certainly talk about the cliff. We need to make sure that it is a step down, a plateau into better policy to support people as they transition, and not a blunt object that keeps people from opportunity in our state. And so we're going to continue to work on that as well. We have a bookend approach when it comes to a lot of the educational work that we do. The next slide is around dual enrollment, and we had an opportunity to speak at the ALICE conference this year about the work that we're doing for ALICE families and how dual enrollment is a part of that. The good news, as you see, 63% increase in dual enrollment participation. Underneath that big number is the fact that we now see high school students participating and more high schools that have economically disadvantaged students who are participating. So more people are aware, more people are participating, more people are successful around dual enrollment, and we think that is really important. A couple of things to share there about dual enrollment when it comes to this upcoming legislative session. We have legislation to allow students to use 9 successful credit hours of dual enrollment to qualify for TOPS Tech if they're interested in career technical education programs, everything from HVAC to plumbing to cyber, et cetera. So we know that successful completion of TOPS Tech early start or career technical dual enrollment courses should qualify for TOPS Tech. So Representative Brass is bringing that legislation. We also are trying to simplify the process of applying for dual enrollment. You know, we've had some policy work to make sure that students had multiple measures of opportunity to be eligible for TOPS, for dual enrollment. And so now we want to make sure that the application process is simplified for all students. So we're providing legislation, also Representative Brass, to have a single application process across the entire state so that students have the opportunity to do that, and parents and counselors don't have to fill out a separate form for McNeese, a separate form for Nichols, a separate form for Southern Shreveport or Southern Baton Rouge. So we're working on that. And then the other thing I would say about dual enrollment is we do see an increase in high school students going directly to college. We think dual enrollment is one piece of that success. And of course, college programs, college savings programs are important, part of that as well. So we have some legislation this session to add additional security to our 529 program and a better customer experience in our 529 program. So Representative Kim Carver will be bringing that legislation around the College Savings Fund. On the other side of the bookend, of course, is MJ Foster. And that program, as you know, is an adult financial aid program, only a few years of track record around that, but it's certainly around allowing adults to participate in adult financial aid for high demand, high wage fields, 5 specific fields in the state of Louisiana. You see here some success numbers, 10,000 students served, over 4,000 completers, and look at the median salary increase for those individuals whose salary information we could find, a $36,000 increase in their median salary as a result of their participation in MJ Foster. So this is clearly a way to move people from poverty to prosperity. Very important. The challenge for us in Louisiana is we blew through $10.5 million in less than 6 months. The governor in his executive budget has increased the funding an additional $14.5 million. So we need to hang on to those funds throughout the legislative process. But we know that MJ Foster matters. It helps individuals. It helps their families. And so that's important work that we're going to continue to do. The other thing I would mention is Senator Edmonds has a bill around career alignment. It speaks directly, and Susie and I co-chair the Career Alignment Task Force, and it speaks directly to this higher calling for us in higher education, which is to move the goalposts when it comes to defining success. As Toya will tell you, she and I have been in this work for a very long time, and we had an access agenda. More people go to college, then a success agenda. More people graduate from college, and now an education to employment focus. So the career alignment legislation that Senator Edmonds is bringing allows us to continue to advance that expectation around career-connected colleges and universities, community colleges as well. So we want to make sure ultimately that every student, regardless of their field of interest, has a robust and real internship, apprenticeship, career-connected experience that allows them to understand how to connect their aptitude and interest to the world of work. This is the next evolution of how we retain talent and grow talent in Louisiana. And so that's work that we will continue to do. We are grateful for the opportunity to work with the United Way, to partner with each and every one of you. I could talk about this all day, Toya, but I know there are many, many speakers, so I'll stop there.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Well, Commissioner, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. However, I do have a question. You know, I'm going to always have a question, right?
Yes.
And so, having worked with you as long as I have, actually in both states that you worked in, when we think about education and healthcare, and we're talking about a budget legislative session, how do we ensure that higher education has the resources that it needs to continue the work that you all have been doing? And I know you're going to say one big part of that, because you are like a great partner for a lot of different agencies, but to ensure that as we look at the legislation that's coming up, as we look at the legislation that Susie mentioned around the workforce component, making sure that we're staying on track with meeting our 60% goal for the state of Louisiana.
Yes, thank you for that. I mean, I think it's really important that we celebrate the mega projects and the tremendous economic development wins. But the win is a dream fulfilled if Louisiana people are filling the jobs. And so that is not a foregone conclusion. We have to be intentional about making sure that the career technical education, the graduate program experiences are there for our students, and that we set an expectation that we want more people to have access to prosperity, and the road to that is robust education and training. So for us, we think about it both as a partnership with adults, many people that you are seeing, but also many of your people that you're seeing are parents. And so how do we serve two generations of individuals, the parents as well as the students? How do we make sure more of our campuses have early childhood centers, robust, affordable, high quality childcare centers? So it is a comprehensive approach, but ultimately it is about making sure that this investment in our people is an investment realized for all communities, and that means resource and an expectation of a Big Ten approach.
Got you. And then I just have one more question. And you mentioned our prosperity centers with the United Way of Southeast Louisiana. But as Michael asked Susie, what are some thoughts regarding the role of other nonprofits, and what they should be doing when we think about this new approach to workforce and education?
I mean, I think the partnerships have got to be wide and deep. And so we always say to our institutions, do not replicate the good work that's happening. Extend your arm to others who are doing great work, whether it's food pantries, whether it's mental health, child care centers, whatever it may be, job placement, career closets. There are just so many needs. And so I know, Tori, you're a big advocate of and a phenomenal asset mapper for what you do. And so this is the calling, right? To make sure you understand the assets in your communities and the needs in our communities so we can make a match and strengthen the work because the needs are many, the resources are always few. And so it's on us to try to make sure we are coordinating and collaborating as much as possible.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I know too that you have to jump as well. And so we will not hold you up any longer. And we really do appreciate all of your comments and all of the work that you are doing, as well as your staff with the Louisiana Border Region. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, it is now my honor to introduce the next panelist, Deputy Commissioner Adam Patrick. Mr. Patrick is a legal professional with a diverse background in legislative affairs, legal education, and public service. Currently serving as the Deputy Commissioner for the Office of Policy, Innovation, and Research at the Louisiana Department of Insurance since August 2025. Adam also holds the position of adjunct professor at Southern University Law Center since August 2021. Prior experience includes working as a staff attorney for the Louisiana House of Representatives and internships with the United States Senate and various legal offices where Adam honed skills in legal research, constituent services, and policy analysis. Please join me in welcoming Deputy Commissioner Patrick. Hi, Patrick. Adam, I'm sorry.
Hey, thank you so much, and thank you for that wonderful recitation of my resume. I might have to get with you afterwards to get a copy of that to use for future bios for me. um, um, well, as she said, my name's Adam Patrick. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of Policy, Innovation, and Research here at the department. Commissioner Temple apologizes for being unable to make it today, but he had some other things he had to attend to. And I'd be happy to go over some of our key things that we have going on this year in terms of our budget. Unfortunately, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation like some of our prior speakers, but I can tell you we have several very important initiatives that we're trying to get going and trying to continue. The Louisiana Department of Insurance is unique in that we do not rely on general fund money to sustain our operations. We actually generate more revenue in licensing fees and fines, things of that nature, than we actually spend on our annual budget. One thing that has happened over the last few years is our Fortified Homes program. It's a program that issues grants to qualifying homeowners to update their home with a fortified roof. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with what a fortified roof is, that is a building standard that is put out by the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, or the IBHS. That is a nonprofit organization that spends years, decades, studying different roof building techniques and other structural techniques in building homes to determine what is the best way to guard against hurricane force winds and what's the best building materials to guard against wildfire damage and things of that nature. So the fortified roof is one component piece of the Fortified Gold program. The roof, as we know, is one of the ways in which, if you can fortify that, is one of the ways in which you can prevent the majority of damage after a storm, internal damage to the home. If you can keep water out of the roof, then outside of a flood, you can expect to have your internal property, your personal property protected. Now, fortified roof does not, of course, mean that you can stay in your home if there's a mandatory evacuation order. So let me be very clear there. It's not fortified to that extent, but it is fortified such that it can withstand hurricane force winds much better than building codes or other building techniques. So this grant program issues grants to get homeowners, qualifying homeowners to that level. And once you complete the process, the program pays directly to the contractor who did the work after it's been inspected, certified, and ensured to be in compliance with those codes. So that those grants are up to $10,000. So if the roof project is less than $10,000, then of course we'll pay the exact dollar figure to that contractor upon receipt of their final invoice and a copy of the certificate from IBHS showing that it meets all the qualifications. If the job is over $10,000, then we pay the $10,000 direct to the contractor, and whatever that difference is, the homeowner would be responsible for. Now, there are several programs out there, like the Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas, who offers grants to try to pay for that delta, pay for that difference, so that the homeowner's not out of pocket. There are also banks and credit unions that offer specialty loans to give certain interest rates, better interest rates for homeowners who are looking to get that done if they don't have the money in hand. And there are some tax incentives. Last year, we doubled the tax deduction rate for self-funding a fortified roof. Now, that's not going to be the whole amount if you get a grant, but just the amount that you self-funded, you can get a tax deduction of up to $10,000. And that can be done in conjunction with receiving a grant. Now, there's also a tax credit that was created. So tax deduction, you can reduce that from your taxable income, whereas a tax credit is a dollar for dollar match. That tax credit cannot be used in conjunction with a grant. And there are some rules that the Department of Revenue recently promulgated that provide for all the qualification criteria, all the documentation you have to submit to revenue in order to get that tax credit if you self-fund. But one of the biggest impediments to us getting to where we want to go in terms of the amount of roofs being put on homes is quite honestly the funding, having the money to do that. As of, I believe this was Friday that I received my last update on the number of grants we put on, or roofs that we put on through the grant program. We've put on 4,302 roofs, and that's in about 27 months. So we have really been cranking it out as we've gotten appropriations from the legislature. For reference, Alabama has the most fortified roofs in the country. They have just over 50,000. I believe it's about 10,000 have come out of their grant program. The other 40,000 have been upgrading their building codes to meet that fortified standard. And then also things like endorsements that you can purchase on your homeowner's policy to upgrade to a fortified standard instead of a regular roof if you experience a covered loss, which we have legislation to clean up our fortified roof endorsement mandate law that is pending House insurance now. So even though Alabama is the biggest with just over 50,000, they've been doing this for over 10 years, and we are, almost halfway there to meeting their output in terms of put on through the grant program in just 27 months. So we are far outpacing any other state in the country in terms of putting on these roofs, but we're not done yet. Out of our self-generated revenue that has been going straight to the general fund over the last couple of years as we've been doing this program, we've been gracious, or the legislature has been gracious enough to allow us to keep somewhere in the ballpark of $20 to $30 million a year, depending on the year, of that money in order to fund these grants. What we did last year was we created a permanent funding source, or I said we, the legislature, at our request, created a permanent funding source. And this does not at all affect the general fund. People have asked, well, Adam, how are you going to get money without affecting the general fund, right? Well, we increased the amount of licensing fees for folks that we license here at the department. And those are insurance agents, insurance producers, or brokers rather, insurance adjusters, public adjusters, all those folks we license, we increase their licensing fee, dedicating that increase to the fortified roof program. We also dedicated a small portion of the premium tax that we collect at the department on premium from policies written in the state to the fortified program. And with those two revenue streams combined, we estimate it's going to be between $27 and $30 million a year that we'll get in revenue for the Fortified Roof program to be able to continue putting on these roofs. And that's not for our staff funding. That's out of our staff budget. That's $3 on putting roofs on homes. So that equates to about 3,000 if assuming everybody uses the 10,000, which they don't. But assuming everybody uses the 10,000, it's 3,000 roofs a year. So you can expect to see a little more than 3,000. Is assuming some people don't use the whole amount. Of the roofs that we've put on, we've had over 100 put on to low to moderate income folks through a program or pilot programs that we're launching with nonprofits in the state. I believe Habitat for Humanity is one of the ones we've been working with to, put on these fortified roofs on structures for folks who are currently homeless. So, we're starting to do more of that. Now, of course, there are others who are low to moderate income who have gotten grants through the program and upgraded their roofs, but we've had pilot programs that have done just over 100 specifically for that purpose. And we're looking at doing things like that as well to try to help out folks who need it most, quite frankly. And particularly in South Louisiana, because as we know, South Louisiana experiences more of that hurricane force damage than the northern part of the state, which is not to say that we're ignoring those folks, but we're trying to, as this program develops out of its infancy, try to concentrate those fortified roofs in the most impact areas. And what we've seen and what Alabama saw once they really started cranking out the roofs is that once a certain saturation level has reached in the coastal area of the state, that the overall reinsurance buy goes down. For those who don't know, reinsurance is insurance that insurance companies buy from the global market to secure against massive catastrophes. So whereas State Farm or Allstate may pay out your house burning down out of their surplus reserves that they have on hand, if there's a catastrophe, $1 billion catastrophe that comes through, a hurricane or something of that nature, they don't have $1 billion in liquid cash to pay out those claims. So they pay what's called their retention, which is similar to our homeowners deductibles. So, and once they reach that retention in a catastrophe, that reinsurance policy kicks in, and those reinsurance dollars flow into that insurance company to pay out those catastrophe claims. Reinsurance is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, cost factor in homeowners insurance companies' annual budgets. So if we can really bring down those reinsurance costs, then that'll be real savings to the insurance company that'll allow them to be more competitive with one another to compete for our business, which is precisely what Alabama saw once they reached a certain saturation level. So we're trying to get to that point. Of course, Alabama only has 2 coastal counties, and we have quite a few coastal counties with the majority of our population living in that coastal zone. So it's going to take a little longer for us to get to that rate, and it may be a higher concentration rate that we need to get to than Alabama did to get to that, to see those real savings in reinsurance. But that is why we are trying to build this program and trying to get these roofs on homes and outpacing these other states, because we have a long way to go. But as I said, this permanent funding source is going to, signal to those reinsurance folks that, look, we are putting in the work. We are dedicated to, building to higher building standards and getting these homes where they need to be. And I think that is going to be reflected as we move forward in the underwriting that the reinsurance companies do in terms of our risk profiles here in Louisiana. As I mentioned earlier, there's legislation to clean up the fortified roof endorsement mandate or offer mandate. This was back in 23, I believe, that legislation was passed to require insurance companies that when they write a new homeowners policy and at first renewal to offer an endorsement to upgrade that home with a fortified roof if they experience a covered loss requiring roof replacement. There were a little bit of areas in that law that needed cleaning up, making it a little clearer. And ensuring that those offers are being made so that you can, if you choose to purchase that endorsement, you can pay a small additional premium depending on how old your roof is. Of course, if it looks as though it's, if you're in a high storm area with an older roof, that endorsement is going to be a little more expensive than if you have a brand new roof in an area that doesn't suffer as much, continual damage from hurricanes. So you pay that additional premium, you experience a loss, and you get a fortified roof instead of just a building code roof. And then with that security that comes in mind, knowing that you're personal property be safe or safer against storms, and that reinsurance may or will in time become cheaper, and we can see a total net drop in the amount that insurers are needing to charge in order to offset their losses. You'll also get a specific to you discount. We have a mandate in law that insurers are required to give a discount if you have a fortified roof. That was passed in 23 as well, if I'm not mistaken. And all admitted insurance companies, those who are required to do rate and form filings with the department, have on file with us those rate discounts, and we publish those annually to our website so that everyone can see what the range is for the fortified roof discounts based on insurer, and that could go into your calculus. And whenever you shop for insurance, should I, if I have a fortified roof, do I want to stay with my company? I may like my company, but hey, this other company is offering 30% or 35%. We've even seen 40 in some cases percent discounts on wind and hail coverage for folks who have those fortified roofs. So just getting that information out there is something that we've been doing and really working on getting those roofs on homes. So we're very happy that the legislature was able to create that permanent funding source for the program and ensure for years to come we're able to continue these efforts. And that is one, I would say that was probably be the biggest budgetary thing that we are pleased with and working on this year. I think you're still on mute.
Thank you so much, Adam. But and I have some questions, but in the essence of time, I'm going to move forward and have Charmaine forward my questions to you. And just so you can be prepared when you get my two questions, it has to do with the licensing and ensuring that these insurers are not then adding those fees to the homeowners. And then the second is when we talk about the premium tax as well. And actually, I had a third one, but again, we'll talk about this offline. Is when we talk about the number of homeowners versus non-homeowners and individuals that are living. A lot of our Alice families, are living in homes that they may not own, and ensuring that they're not caught up in insurance matters that they don't have any control over. So I'm going to send my questions to you, Adam. I'm not going to put you on the spot with those big ones today, but we really do appreciate you being on today and really explaining to us how this legislation is going to work to help us understand better and for us to help our families understand better. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm happy to answer your questions. Anyone's questions, feel free to reach out. One other thing, if you don't mind indulging me, that I want to mention is, and it sparked me whenever you said understanding your policy. So beginning in 2027, a bill that passed last year will require admitted companies to issue to you, if you on your homeowner's policy and your personal passenger auto policy, a rate transparency report that shows, I believe it's 8 different factors that affect your premium, where those dollars are going, to better inform the consumers so that everyone knows, look, reinsurance is a thing, and that maybe 40% of your premiums go into that. That's something that people don't even know exists, but is a huge cost factor in their insurance buy. So we're trying to get that education out there, trying to better inform the consumer. And again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to discuss.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. With that, we're going to turn to introducing Dr. Jenna Chasson. Dr. Chasson serves the Louisiana Department of Education as Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. During her tenure in this role, Dr. Chasson led support for educators and families through the pandemic that minimized learning loss and in some subjects led to student growth as measured by NAEP. She has collaborated with policymakers, industry partners, and education leaders to transform early literacy instruction across almost 200 school systems. Prior to joining the department, Dr. Chasson began her career as a high school English teacher in Louisiana. She served as Executive Director of Teaching and Learning for Jefferson Parish Schools, the largest public school system in Louisiana. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Chasson. Hi, Jenna.
Thank you, Toya. Thanks so much for having me on this morning. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about what's on the horizon for early childhood and for K-12 education. We know that we've come a long way over the last several years. We've moved from 49th to 32nd in the country for education, driven by our student achievement increases in literacy and in math. We can't say any longer that Louisiana is at the bottom of the country in education. And we know that so much of this work has been driven by strong policies that began in our state legislature and then equally strong implementation by Louisiana educators in classrooms. So I couldn't be more grateful for everyone's hard work in increasing student outcomes in our state. We've been laser focused in how to institute a back to the basics approach and how to give students a strong start in those early grade levels, especially in reading and in math. And we can see in the executive budget for this year that there are holds on the funding for a lot of important work that has taken place over the last several years. There's a steady amount dedicated to Louisiana's outside of the school day tutoring program that is named after the late Steve Carter. And that's a tutoring program that's been expanded for kindergarten through 12th grade students in both reading and math who are performing below grade level. The Steve Carter tutoring program has been a really successful tutoring program here in our state. Parents can sign up for the program if they're notified by their school that their student is performing below grade level. We currently have a wait list for this program, and we were really pleased to see it funded once again because it's definitely something I think that is a desire of families in the state who qualify for it. We know that by the wait list that we have for it. We can also see in the executive budget for this year, our school day embedded tutoring program, which is for kindergarten through 5th grade students who are performing below grade level in reading and math. We call it our Accelerate program. That as well has been really successful and I think definitely led to some of the uptick that we've seen in student achievement over the last several years. So we see a hold on that $30 million appropriation for kindergarten through 5th grade tutoring for reading and math. We also see a hold in the executive budget this year for differentiated pay, which is an amount that's appropriated to local school systems. And that differentiated pay means that local systems are able to use that funding to recruit and retain teachers based on their specific areas of need. So if there's a particular school that's difficult to staff, maybe it's a lower performing school. Maybe there's a particular area they're struggling with, say high school math or high school science. School systems are able to use this pot of money to differentiate pay and provide different stipends for teachers to work in those hard to staff areas, either for recruitment or for retention. So that differentiated pay is really important. That's in the executive budget as well. And local school systems are given a little autonomy in how to use that based on their local context. We also see a hold on the amount for internships and apprenticeships. Y'all know that we've done a lot of work over the last several years in how are we preparing high school students for career, college, or service. And so that's important as well to help fund those internships and apprenticeships at the high school level. I think we've heard already that trajectory today, which is really nice that I'm following. Some folks today who are here to talk, Secretary Showen and Dr. Kim Hunter-Reid, here to talk about what happens in life beyond high school. And so that internship and apprenticeship funding is really important at the high school level as well. So we're really pleased to see a hold in that in the executive budget. We also saw a hold in the amount of funding dedicated for early childhood seats at the other end of the spectrum there. Which is so important. That early childhood has been mentioned several times so far today. Really essential to preparing students for kindergarten, but equally as important, we know, to the workforce and for parents to be able to enter or stay in the workforce is that early childhood funding. So we were pleased once again to see a hold in that amount of funding for early childhood seats. I also think there should be a lot of intentional discussions this year at the legislature about the early childhood fund that matches local fundraising efforts. So for those of you who don't know, there was a fund instituted several years ago that matches local communities in their fundraising. And the trust fund is currently being depleted at a faster rate than it is being refilled. And this is a really important fund because that match truly incentivizes local communities to come together and fundraise in their own local context, meeting the needs of their area. So I'm hopeful, and I think there will be a lot of really intentional discussion about what the future of that fund might look like, since it is being depleted faster than it can be refilled by the current dedications to the fund. The executive budget does include a doubling of the current amount for the LA Gator program, which is giving all true opportunity to rise. And this is the Louisiana Education Savings Account that was instituted by legislation. And this has been Governor Jeff Landry's signature bill for education. And it doubles it from $43.5 million to an $87 million appropriation. And we at the department are dedicated to running an efficient and effective program, no matter the amount of funding. I think this has been a very successful new program that we've been able to implement and get off the ground and running for the students who have been eligible and been able to receive it this past year. We'll also see some interest in the legislature this year. We've had some bills drop. And this is really, I think, comes from an interest in expanding some of that back to the basics approach that we've really taken in the lower grade levels into some higher grade levels. So there's a bill by Representative John Weibel that expands some of our early literacy work into secondary literacy. So it expands screening for reading deficits and the supports that students receive in reading for middle and high school. So this is really an important bill that pays attention to students who have maybe fallen through the cracks in those earlier grade levels. They end up in middle school and in high school unable to read. And this bill really addresses how are we screening those students for reading deficits? How are we informing their parents? What kind of reading plan should they be on? And what types of intervention should they be receiving at the middle and high school level? The other thing, the other kind of, I'll say, partner bill to that is Senator Patrick McMath originally wrote the kindergarten through fifth grade school day embedded tutoring program that's currently in place. And his bill this year expands that tutoring into those middle school grades. And so that legislation that exists from kindergarten through fifth grade and is in its second year of implementation is looking to be expanded into middle school grades, so into sixth, seventh, and eighth grade with this new bill that Senator McMath is introducing. So we're really excited about the work that has been done in K-12 education and in early childhood. We're so grateful for the momentum that's been created in improving student achievement. I think early childhood and K-12 education right now and the improvement that we've seen there is just a testament of so many people in our state coming and working together. Those partnerships between advocates, the legislature, Bessie, our Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, our administration at the Department of Education, the governor and his office. This is really, I think, just a true meeting of the minds in understanding the importance of K-12 education and knowing that we have to get this right. We have to get this right for the students of Louisiana. And fortunately, we've seen a lot of progress there, but we know that we still have so much work to be done until more students in our state are able to read and do grade level math. So we know the work is certainly not done. So we're looking forward to this upcoming session. Oop, you're on mute, Toya.
Sorry, I keep putting myself on mute so that I'm not making noise while you all are talking. But anyway, there is a question for you that I'm going to ask the question that's in the chat and not my question. So how can we properly advocate for the appropriate refilling of that early education fund so that we aren't missing kids? We know overall the Head Start and Educare funds are underfunded. So how do we advocate for the continued support and possibly even more support for those programs?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think two specific ways. One, at the state level, definitely there can be some advocacy talking with members of the legislature, especially knowing who in the legislature, and I know Charmaine is happy to help with that, Who in the legislature might be most important to speak to? We have some legislators who are very much on board, and others who maybe just need to learn more and are definitely interested in learning more about the importance of early childhood and this fund. So I think there's that state level. There's also a local level approach called Ready Start networks that are all across the state now. So in your own local community, getting involved in your own Ready Start network and learning what those folks are doing as they come together around local fundraising. So both of those, I think, are really important sides of that fund and how that match is made.
Well, I'm not seeing any other questions for you, Dr. Chason, so I just want to thank you again. And you and I can have a meeting offline about some other thoughts that have come up around accountability around MFP dollars to schools and how that ties to all of these other initiatives that you're talking about and funding. So thank you.
Oh, yeah. Can I just ask one thing? This is Charmaine.
For
Dr. Chasson, if you have the opportunity, because we've invited so many of our business leaders, and to hear you speak so enthusiastically about the necessity to be able to provide these internships and apprenticeship programs, because they really do engage hands-on an opportunity to better prepare those students. When we heard the commissioner's presentation into what those career paths are for them to enter higher ed or certification training.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's so important. And again, I think so much of the time that is local partnerships. You know, I see it here in my own community that can make that so successful when school systems are able to reach out to local business and industry and say, what is your specific need here in our region? And how can we help create that for you?
And engaging those businesses, if they want to enroll and they want to learn more about this, how's the best way for them to get that information today?
Their local school system. We are here too, and we're trying to really, I would say the Department of Education and Bessie, you know, Bessie has really been hard at work in their own local districts, our Bessie members, and how can they pull together partnerships between business and industry and local school systems. Definitely talking with local superintendents about those needs and how they can work together.
Thank you so much, Jenna. And if you can stay on,
Thank you, Tony.
if you have to jump, we understand as well. We know how crazy busy everyone is, but we really
Thank
appreciate
y'all.
your time this morning. So now I have the honor to introduce Christopher Baum. Mr. Baum was appointed Undersecretary of the Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services in June of 2025. In this role, he oversees the department's fiscal operations and administrative functions, ensuring strong financial stewardship and operational accountability in support of Louisiana's children and families. He previously served as Deputy Undersecretary, where he played a key leadership role in advancing the department's financial and administrative priorities. Baum began his public service career in 2010 with the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development and brings more than a decade of state government experience in public finance and administration to his work at DCFS. So please join me in welcoming Undersecretary Baum. Hi, Christopher.
Hey, how are you today?
Doing great.
So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to join you all this morning. So, my name is Christopher Baum. I have the privilege to serve as the Undersecretary for the Department of Children and Family Services. And as the department prepares to go into the 2026 legislative session, DCFS is focused on targeted strategic investments that strengthen infrastructure and stabilize care. Chief among those are our two primary budget priorities. First is increasing board rates for foster parents and placement providers. Our foster parents and congregate care providers are caring for children who have experienced significant trauma. These children require stability, therapeutic supports, and in many cases, higher levels of supervision and care. Louisiana board rates have not kept up with the pace of inflation, the rising cost of food, housing, utilities, insurance, or staffing. And in fact, the department has only increased board rates once in the last 19 years. The result is increasing placement stability. The result is increasing placement instability and reduced provider capacity. When rates are insufficient, providers close beds. When those providers close beds, children experience placement disruptions. And when placements disrupt, outcomes decline. Increased board rates is not simply a cost adjustment. It is a stabilization strategy and a child well-being investment. From a fiscal perspective, adequate board rates reduce downstream expenditures. Stable placements reduce emergency placements, shorten the length of stay, decrease reliance on higher cost interventions, and improve permanency timelines. Every placement disruption carries administrative cost, but more importantly, it carries emotional cost to the child. From an outcomes perspective, placement stability improves educational continuity, behavioral health progress, and permanency achievement. Stability is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success. And if we expect children to move from foster care to permanent homes faster and with better outcomes, we must ensure the caregivers providing daily support are adequately resourced. You may have seen last week that Governor Landry signed a proclamation called A Home for Every Child in partnership with ACF Assistant Secretary Alex Adams. The objective is straightforward: to have homes waiting on kids, not kids waiting on homes. Today, Louisiana has 48 foster homes for every 100 children in foster care. That imbalance places strain on the system. It increases the likelihood of children being placed outside their parish, separated from their siblings, or placed in a higher level of care than clinically necessary simply because capacity is limited. When we do not have sufficient foster homes, particularly for teens, sibling groups, and children with complex needs, we rely more heavily on congregate care and out-of-region placements. Those placements are often more expensive, can disrupt educational continuity, family visitation, and community connection. Increased board rates is part of correcting that imbalance. Competitive, sustainable reimbursement supports retention of foster families, and more importantly, it signals that Louisiana values the families willing to open their homes. Our second budget priority this session is modernizing the child welfare technology. Today, child welfare operates across 7 different systems to document cases, track services, monitor safety plans, and manage federal reporting requirements. These systems do not communicate effectively with one another. Workers must duplicate data entry, information is fragmented, and reporting is cumbersome. This directly impacts service delivery because when a worker spends excessive time navigating multiple systems, that is time not spent with the family. When data systems do not integrate, risk indicators are harder to identify. When reporting is inefficient, federal compliance becomes more burdensome and more costly. Our goal is to move to a single integrated child welfare system, one system for intake, case management, provider coordination, and reporting. This modernization effort is about operational efficiency, workforce retention, and data-informed decision-making. And from a fiscal standpoint, integration reduces duplicative maintenance costs, improves claim accuracy under Title IV-E, and strengthens audit readiness. Clean data improves federal reimbursement and reduces corrective action plan risk. And from a workforce standpoint, modern systems reduce burnout. Caseworkers already manage high emotional demands, and we should not compound that with an inefficient infrastructure. From an outcome standpoint, integrated data allows us to identify trends earlier, allocate resources more strategically, and measure performance with precision. Technology is not an administrative luxury. It is a vital support tool for our front line. Beyond budget priorities, DCFS is organizing its work around what we call the 4 corners of a home. That's prevention, preservation, protection, and permanency. Prevention means strengthening families before removal becomes necessary. This includes upstream services that address substance abuse, housing instability, and economic stressors. National data consistently show that neglect, often correlated with poverty-related stressors, accounts for the majority of child welfare cases. And when we address housing instability, substance abuse, and economic strain early, we reduce the likelihood of removal and shorten the duration of system involvement. Prevention means supporting families with services that allow children to remain safely at home or reunify when appropriate. When safe, reunification is often the most stabilizing permanency option. Protection means ensuring that when abuse or neglect does occur, the response is immediate, professional, and child-centered. And permanency means children do not linger in care. Whether through reunification, guardianship, or adoption, every child deserves a safe, stable, and permanent home. These four corners guide our budget decisions. Increasing board rates strengthens preservation and permanency by stabilizing placements. Modernizing technology strengthens prevention and protection by improving early identification, case coordination, and service tracking. Increasing board rates ensures that caregivers can continue serving Louisiana's most vulnerable children without absorbing unsustainable financial strain. Modernizing our technology ensures that the professionals charged with protecting children can operate efficiently with integrated data and clear visibility into risk and progress. Grounding our work in prevention, preservation, protection, and permanency ensures that every decision supports a safe and stable home for every child. Because at the end of the day, child welfare is not about systems. It is about homes. It is about whether a child sleeps in a stable bed tonight. It is about whether a family has the support to stay together tomorrow. It is about whether that child has a real opportunity to thrive 10 years from now. And if we get these investments right, we do more than strengthen a department. We strengthen families. We reduce long-term dependency, and we move children and ultimately communities toward lasting prosperity. This is work worth doing together because our children can't wait. Thank you, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Christopher. And there is a question, and actually I have one, but I'm going to ask this one first and then I'll ask mine. Can you speak to the proposed bill of State Senator Regina Barrow, Senate Bill 265 to abolish DCFS and move its functions to other existing agencies like LA Works and LDH?
Yep, so we saw that bill dropped Friday afternoon. So we are tracking that very closely. We're going to participate and engage with Senator Barrow and all of our committees who have oversight over us, and we'll see where the policymakers decide to move forward.
Thank you, Christopher. And then I have to ask this question because it's been a burning question of mine for several years.
Sure.
I do feel like we do an exceptional job around foster care, and I appreciate you're talking about that single integrated child welfare system. As somebody who's worked in the post-secondary environment for over 30 years, one of the things that I was always concerned about is foster care kids who age out of foster care, either while still in school or they'll age out upon graduation. And how do we better support them, either from a legislative standpoint, a higher education standpoint, a social services standpoint, to ensure that once they graduate or they've aged out of foster care, that they have a place to go because foster parents are no longer responsible for them. So is there something that we're doing in that area?
Absolutely. So from a social services standpoint, our secretary has made it clear to all of us that aging out of foster care is an unacceptable solution. We are moving to make sure that every child who comes into our care does go to kinship or to guardianship adoption, one of those other outside places, because they deserve a safe and stable home. So we are actively working on that. We do not want to accept aging out as an outcome.
Yeah. Well, I would love to have additional conversation with you about
Absolutely.
that. I have some ideas, especially because we've worked with several in a lot of different institutions, 2-year and 4-year, where I'm very concerned about foster kids aging out of foster care. So thank you so much for engaging with us. And we'll be following Senate Bill 265 as well. So thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
Yes. And so we do, and I'm paying attention to time, Charmaine. So I know we have about 9 minutes left, but if there are any other questions from any of our participants, you can either put it in the chat, or if you all staff, family, I call my United Way members my family as well. If you all see any questions out there that I'm not seeing in the chat, please let me know. But I think we are clear in the chat because we probably answered all the questions as we've gone along this morning. Any other questions, concerns, comments? All right, hearing none, I want to turn this over to our fearless leader, Michael Williamson, President and CEO of United Way of Southeast Louisiana, to provide any comments he would like to make.
Well,
Michael?
thanks, Toya, and what an amazing set of panelists. I know we're limited on time, so just I jotted a few kind of key takeaways I thought I would share as our leaders on the panel today discussed, their approaches and priorities when it comes to helping more Alice households achieve economic prosperity, which Toya, you mentioned is, our bold goal to help 100,000 individuals below the Alice threshold achieve pathways to prosperity by 2035. So a few takeaways. One, it was clear through discussion today that workforce and education must be tightly aligned. And we saw clear evidence that credentials must be directly tied to high wage, high demand jobs, but equally important is ensuring that Alice households access those jobs. The other is affordability is foundational. Things like insurance costs, childcare, and tuition are not side issues. They're actually economic mobility issues. And third, prevention saves systems. Early education, you heard, workforce access, family stabilization, reduce long-term public costs, and strengthen communities. And so our role at United Way and the role of this public policy committee is to ensure that every policy conversation asks the question that we always ask is it good for Alice? Is what we're doing good for Alice? And if the answer is yes, if it increases income, reduces essential costs, or builds assets, and it moves us closer to our bold goal. That's the work we have to do. Madam Chairwoman, I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. Fantastic panel. You're on mute, Toya.
Sorry. Thank you, Michael. I love the points. I was writing them down and definitely captured what was covered this morning, and that we will be, of course, paying attention to as we continue our work around the policy agenda. So with that, I have the pleasure to introduce Charmaine Cassiope. Charmaine serves as the Executive Vice President and COO for the United Way of Southeast Louisiana's Public Policy and Government Affairs. Her 20-year career at United Way of Southeast Louisiana has included the successful advocating for the first ever EITC state match, passage of the child care tax credits, implementing statewide high-quality early child care rating system, and a fierce champion in the fight against domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. She has been a driving force and continues to be behind landmark policies improving safety and justice for survivors, women, and children. So with that, I would like to turn it over to my fearless leader, Charmaine Cassiope.
Well, Dr. Teamer, thank you so much for those very kind remarks. And a special thank you to our President and CEO, Michael Williamson, for tying together the extraordinary work that we see done by our subject matter experts, which we hire on staff to meet people where they are. The work that we are doing around the Alice report to ensure that our bold goal is not only realistic, but that we meet it in bold fashion is critical. I would be remiss in not acknowledging that I hope today our listeners are informed by the fact that the work of public policy and advocacy continues throughout the year. I'm delighted to say that these individuals who are leading advocacy for our Alice families at the state level and who are our secretaries and our deputy secretaries are as critically important to policy and advocacy as are the legislators that are working with us on the ground to advance specific policies, many of which we are writing and informing them on ourselves. I know that today's program is a tribute to the fact that not-for-profits have a significant role in moving, advancing, and creating an atmosphere for good public policy. I hope that you will stay tuned, engage with United Way throughout this session, which kicks off on March the 9th. And I want you to know that we want you to remain informed because it was our hope we'd have the Secretary for the Louisiana Department of Health, Bruce Greenstein, to be with us today. He could not, but we are trying desperately to host because we know how health plays an important role in advancing the needs of our Alice families. So we are looking to try to get that locked in as soon as possible. But I want to thank each and every participant, each and every individual that supports our United Way, whether through their donations, their advocacy, or their volunteer work. And a special thank you to you, Toya, for taking on the responsibilities to lead this work. Y'all have a great week. Stay informed. And thank you to the team that made today possible in our communications department, Marianne Brazil and Missy Brahmagusa. But thank you to my colleague in policy and advocacy, the remarkable Pam Allison. Have a great day.
Thank you.